front. This is the street side. It's a side yard facing a street, and that dimension is 15 feet on our plan, and that meets the requirement. Regarding lighting, lighting will meet code. There's a condition of approval that says to submit lighting fixtures, and we intend to submit lighting plan and lighting fixtures to planning for approval as the process goes on. And finally, I just want to speak to kind of a general concern about the development as a whole. This is an R1.5 zone. Can we go back to the zoning code, the zoning map? That again, this is an area where R1 is transitioning to R1.5 and then into R2. It's not intended for it to be identical to R1. It is an area of transition. Duplexes and triplexes are outright permitted uses in the R1.5 zone. So it is different, but different doesn't necessarily mean not compatible. There's a lot of different housing types that are different, but they're certainly compatible with one another. And it's been mentioned that these are apartments. They're not apartments, they're triplexes. There's a different feel there. The homes are going to be not much larger than the residential homes around it. It's not like it's got 120-foot long dimensions, and these buildings are 60 feet long.
Okay.
So,
any questions?
Will the existing building be demolished?
pardon me, you said when?
When will the existing structure be demolished that the renters are in now?
That would be the first thing that would happen at the site. I would expect once the project receives an approval, it would be approximately 6 weeks, probably is about as fast as plans could get approved. With some certainty that their project is approved, they could get a demo permit faster.
If I may, we already have a demolition permit.
Okay. So again, that would be obviously the first thing that would happen is that the building would be demoed. If I may, I forgot to address landscaping, if you don't mind. I'd just like to touch on that. With our submitted landscape plan, there are 4 trees proposed along the south property line and a number of shrubs. In this corner, this tree here is a western red cedar. Is planned on our plan. It is shown as a 6 to 7 foot tall tree when it's planted. And then behind each unit there are 2 shrubs, and then there's also a Kuza dogwood. I don't know, I can't say I know exactly what that looks like, but it is a 2-inch caliper tree, which is about, most street trees when they're planted are 1.5 inches, so it's a little larger tree than what would typically go in a street tree type situation. And then each of these other units, also all of the units have trees proposed in the backyards. That's something that we heard at the neighborhood meeting. So I understand the neighbors didn't have all the information at the neighborhood meeting, but the landscape plan was something that we hadn't even started at the neighborhood meeting, and it was developed based upon concerns that we heard from the neighbors at the meeting.
Okay. Any more questions? Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to close the public testimony, and time for questions, if any, from us to them or staff. Okay. So we'll begin discussion. Well, I guess there was a question. Can a garage be considered a parking space, Brian?
The code does allow that. Not every code in every city does, but our code does allow you to count in a residential zone a garage as one of the required parking spaces, and we've utilized it several times. I'm not quite sure when the code adopted that. I really don't know, but it's been there for a while. And it's certainly a factor in that a lot of people, and it's reared its head in Canby in some of our townhome developments and such, and we've heard directly from people that they've run out of or are having parking issues, and they think the number one reason is because people aren't parking in their garage. But that becomes a very, very tricky issue for a governmental entity and a city in terms of enforcement. So the best thing I could possibly think of is maybe a condition that requires them to include a provision in their CC&Rs or something, but we don't enforce CC&Rs. That's not something the city participates in, but at least would set up something where maybe on the outset there's an intention that you actually utilize your garage for parking and make note of the reason why, because parking is short. But it's a difficult issue for a city to deal with.
Sure. Any other questions?
I have a comment, if it's okay.
Now we are going to start with discussion and deliberation. Larry, you started off.
Oh, okay. Well, because of the letters and stuff, I did visit the site, and I live over in Valley Farms. Parking, I think, will be an issue there, but there is street parking on Township across the street, and I believe that if parking is an issue, it's the residents of the triplex that'll have to suffer with it. And when you go to rent that place, you're going to see what kind of parking you have. But I think eventually there's going to be people parked on Township. The two-story stuff, people looking in their yards and stuff with all these codes where all our lots keep getting smaller and smaller. If you want a daggum yard, you better build a two-story house. And I live in a two-story house in Valley Farms, and all of my neighbors, most of my neighbors have two-story houses, but there are ranches, and you can look out of your top bedroom windows down into everybody's yard. These guys, I think, they've met the code. I don't know what else you can do. It looks like it's going to be a nice complex. Well, I personally would vote in favor of it.
Chris?
I guess my only comment would be I understand I've had unruly neighbors before too, and that's a stress and a headache for the landlord and for the neighbors. But as a planning commission, we're just here to make sure the codes are followed. We can't do anything with that. So maybe another private meeting amongst you all would be a good idea. But it does look like a nice complex, and I would hope that the tenants coming in would take pride where they live. And I would take heart in the fact that if one neighbor is unruly, the other 5 households are going to get on them, not to mention all of you good people, and hopefully bring things under control. And code enforcement at Canby PD is your friend, so we utilize that. So anyway, it does look like a nice place. I wrote down how much the rent would be because I've got 2 lovely daughters looking for a place to move into in here in Canby. So our job is to make sure the code is met, and the rest of the things we can't touch.
Comments?
I'll throw in a comment. I think with land becoming more and more valuable and critical and in hard supply, the buildings have to go higher. It's just a fact of life, and it's unfortunate for existing one-level structures like I live in when these go next door, but I'm afraid it's just a fact of life that we're going to have to live with. As long as the zoning permits it, there's no violation. I can't oppose it.
Darren?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think it would be a nice addition to what's there today, but it meets all the code requirements and the zoning, so.
I would agree. It does meet all the codes. And Commissioner Rocha is correct. Our job here is to just make sure that the codes are all in place and are properly followed. I would encourage you to, I can't do anything about it, but I would encourage you to have another neighborhood meeting and work out maybe with some of these neighbors. Obviously, there are some concerns here. So it might be something that I would suggest that you meet with some of these people and listen to what they have to say, and if there's anything that you can do to help them allay their fears and concerns. I think that would go a long way to having good neighbor relations. So other than that, though, I would say it's a nice plan and meets all of the requirements. So I will entertain a motion.
Can I ask a question about condition 1? Brian, because it says if we support the TIA conclusion regarding the access exception, then that condition is no longer needed.
That's correct.
So
So if you're accepting the findings of the traffic study that said and recommended, as they studied everything, that, hey, providing an exception to not meeting the normal driveway separation requirements in a street that has driveways everywhere, it makes it impossible to redevelop the property if you follow it, and they've done the best that they can in this particular instance, and they don't think it's going to result in a safety hazard. So you'd be accepting that, and this condition would go away.
So I make a motion to accept the transportation impact analysis and strike condition 1. Is that right?
Brian?
That's right.
I make a motion to strike condition 1 and accept the transportation impact analysis.
Second.
Moved and seconded that we accept the plan. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Thank you very much. Again, encourage you to meet with your neighbors.
And we would welcome that. If you guys want to put your name down here.
John, do we still have to approve the thing with all the conditions?
Second one, but this one.
That was just striking, that was striking just the first one. Do we need another motion to approve the,
Well, your motion was a little bit gray in that I just assumed that you were approving the recommendation as submitted with striking.
That's what I assumed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think you did it okay. Yeah.
just want to be sure.
Okay.
Is there an appeal process? Appeal process? Can I see your office and get it tomorrow? Is that
Okay. Okay. New business, there is none that I can see here. Except that, again, welcome back, Lainey.
Thank you. It's good to be back.
That's the new business. So I will entertain a motion for final decision to approve DR 16-05 MLP 16-02 Monin Construction.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve DR 16-05/MLB 16-02 mode construction. As presented.
Okay, we have moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Items of interest from the staff.
Well, we listed one that we're expecting that our next regular scheduled meeting is actually going to be September 26th. So the earlier September meeting's probably going to be canceled.
Okay.
We don't have any items for that, and we're just really swamped in trying to keep up with what we do have.
Okay.
Just work Laney harder.
Yeah.
Well,
come on.
To the hospital again.
Some of the things that we're working on right now is assisting the applicants with the Hanlon development, which is a redevelopment of the half block that we're sitting on right here. And then we're also working with the applicant on the Canby Utilities new site on South Pine Street. So they will be building their new building and eventually moving away from their office that's in this block. And we're also working with applicants for BB Steel and an expansion out on Southeast Township Road next to American Steel. And that property will be an interesting one in that they're actually in the county right now. And so we're in cooperation with the applicant and the county, trying to get them to meet city standards without the potential of annexation, simply because the city has chosen at this point not to force it, but they need our utility services. And so they're still deciding whether they're actually going to annex or not, and we'll see how that works out. But we're trying to work it out so they can potentially get our utility services if they meet our city standards.
Okay.
A tit for tat.
Quid pro quo.
Mr. Chair, I will be not here on the 12th or the 26th. I'll be away for business.
Well, apparently the 12th is not an issue, but the 26th. Big demerit for you, my friend. Okay.
Can we just put a cardboard stand up there?
Yeah.
I could.
Okay.
Take a selfie.
You've got a month to get that made.
Okay.
I'll have Mary do that for me.
You have a question?
Are we allowed to say what's going into the Scott building, or is that a matter of, I don't know
Yeah,
how
I
that
mean,
works?
I don't know the actual tenants. I just know that there's a drive-through type restaurant
I know
and
what
another
they are, I just
restaurant.
don't know if it's okay to say it. I don't know if it's, I said I know what they are, I just don't know if that's
Yeah,
okay.
at this point, it's past any appeals or anything like that, so, yeah,
always
I
going
would think
in.
it's fine.
Jimmy John's.
Okay.
And T-Mobile and a pizza
Mod
place.
Pizza.
Mod, I think it's Mod, is it Mod?
That's what I heard. But you know how rumors are.
Yeah, it's something like
Rumors
that.
of
I don't
war.
think that's the word.
Okay.
I'm excited.
Good for the kids.
So, any items of interest or discussion from us?
Thank you.
Busy weekend. I'm happy.
I would like, I'm going to adjourn the meeting, and I'd like everybody to stay for just a minute. And I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll motion to adjourn.
Second?
We're adjourned.
I wasn't in favor of that.
You were?